Disclaimer: the following presentation is intended solely for educational and entertainment purposes and does not constitute professional financial, legal, business, or marketing advice. Choosing software infrastructure, particularly marketing automation platforms that handle personally identifiable information, carries inherent business risks and strict legal compliance requirements. This includes, but is not limited to, adherence to federal regulations such as the CAN-SPAM Act, as well as state-specific data privacy legislation like the California Consumer Privacy Act and the California Privacy Rights Act. The software tools, marketing strategies, and operational frameworks discussed in this deep dive reflect historical trends, documented case studies, and potential outcomes based on independent market analysis. However, these examples do not represent guaranteed results, nor do they ensure the future success, scalability, or profitability of your specific enterprise. Every single startup operates within a unique set of market conditions, financial constraints, and customer dynamics. Therefore, it is absolutely imperative that you conduct your own rigorous, independent due diligence and consult with qualified legal or business professionals before implementing any new software platform or fundamentally altering your digital marketing strategy. Viewers assume all inherent risks and total operational responsibility for any business decisions made based on the information provided in this masterclass. You have been systematically misinformed about how to build and scale a viable startup in the United States today. Every single time you open a browser, an army of self-proclaimed marketing gurus and overpriced agency executives pushes a relentless narrative that the absolute only way to generate traction for a new business is by pouring tens of thousands of dollars into social media advertising, chasing unpredictable viral video trends, or committing to exorbitant monthly retainers for overly complex, bloated software suites. But here is a shocking, heavily suppressed statistical reality that the paid advertising industry desperately wants to keep hidden from early-stage founders. A massive percentage of new businesses collapse within their first 24 months, and one of the absolute leading causes of this failure is the total depletion of operating capital due to completely unsustainable customer acquisition costs. Let us examine a stark case study of a recent direct-to-consumer apparel brand that launched out of Austin, Texas, with a respectable $50,000 in seed funding. Instead of building a foundational audience, the founders were convinced to allocate $40,000 directly into Meta and TikTok advertising campaigns over a highly aggressive 3-month sprint. For a brief, intoxicating moment, they saw a massive spike in website traffic and a flurry of initial sales. They thought they had cracked the code. But then, an entirely unpredictable and unannounced algorithm update was rolled out by the platform networks. Literally overnight, their cost per click quadrupled. Their organic reach was intentionally throttled to zero. Because this startup had relied entirely on renting an audience from a massive technology conglomerate, they possessed absolutely no direct, own line of communication with the tens of thousands of people who had visited their store or engaged with their content. When the traffic stopped, their revenue flatlined instantly, their financial runway vanished in a matter of weeks, and they were forced to permanently cease operations. Now contrast that devastating trajectory with another completely bootstrapped software startup from the exact same launch cohort. Instead of burning their precious early capital on fleeting digital advertisements, this second founding team focused relentlessly and obsessively on capturing their anonymous website visitors using a simple, entirely free value exchange mechanism. They built a robust, highly targeted list of internal subscribers. When the social media algorithms inevitably shifted and the broader market experienced a downturn, this bootstrap team did not panic, and they did not need to raise emergency bridge funding. They simply logged into their system and pressed send. They owned their distribution channel. They effectively utilized a communication medium that has historically demonstrated potential outcomes of a $36 return on investment for every single dollar allocated. That bulletproof channel is email marketing. But here is the massive hidden catch that traps countless entrepreneurs. If you go online right now and blindly search for email marketing platforms, you will be immediately bombarded by aggressively marketed, enterprise-level solutions demanding hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month before you have even validated your product market fit or generated your first dollar of revenue. For a newly minted United States startup bootstrapping its way to survival, committing to a $200 monthly recurring software subscription is nothing short of financial sabotage. You desperately need a marketing platform that scales synchronously with your growth, one that costs exactly $0 until your top-line revenue logically justifies the operational expense. However, Navigating the free software landscape is like walking through a minefield blindfolded. Many of the most popular, heavily advertised free tools are actually elaborate traps designed to cripple your initial growth. They intentionally throttle your deliverability rates on their free tiers, utilizing shared, low-quality internet protocol addresses. This means your carefully crafted introductory newsletters completely bypass your prospect's primary inbox and land straight in the spam folder, rendering your marketing efforts totally useless. Other platforms strictly lock the most essential, revenue-generating features, such as automated multi-day welcome sequences or basic behavioral audience segmentation, behind immediate, hard paywalls. This effectively makes their heavily promoted free tier a glorified, time-wasting trial rather than a highly functional business tool. If you make the critical error of choosing the wrong platform today, realizing your mistake 6 months from now will force you into a catastrophic migration process. Moving thousands of contacts, rebuilding complex automated workflows, and redesigning branded templates across platforms will cost you hundreds of hours in lost productivity and potentially result in permanent data loss. In this comprehensive, uncompromising deep dive masterclass, we are going completely under the hood to dissect the top 5 absolutely free email marketing tools specifically engineered and tailored for United States startups. The core objective of this presentation is to ensure that by the time we conclude, you will possess a crystal clear, empirically backed understanding of exactly which specific platform aligns flawlessly with your unique business model. Whether you are running a high-volume e-commerce storefront, an appointment-based local service business, or a rapidly iterating software-as-a-service application, we are absolutely not going to sit here and simply read off a superficial list of brand names. We are going to forensically analyze these 5 distinct platforms based on a rigorous, uncompromising set of technical criteria that actually move the needle for founders. First, we will examine the historical trends of their deliverability rates. We will look closely at how these platforms handle strict authentication protocols like sender policy framework and domain keys identified mail, ensuring that your critical communications actually reach your target audience's primary inbox instead of being blocked by strict corporate firewalls. Second, we will deeply explore the complex mathematics behind the subscriber and sending limits embedded within each free tier. Some platforms will attempt to lure you in by offering a massive allowance of raw contacts, but they will severely restrict how many actual emails you can transmit per month. Conversely, others offer unlimited monthly sending volume, but cap your total database size extremely early in your growth cycle. We will break down these exact limitations so you can mathematically forecast precisely when your startup will inevitably outgrow the free infrastructure and exactly what the subsequent financial shock will look like. Third, we will meticulously unpack the specific automation capabilities available to you at absolutely zero cost. In today's hyper-competitive digital landscape, simply blasting out a generic weekly newsletter is entirely insufficient to drive meaningful conversion. You require the sophisticated ability to trigger highly targeted, automated abandoned cart recovery reminders, orchestrate complex multi-day educational onboarding sequences, and deploy conditional post-purchase follow-up campaigns without spending a single dime on software overhead. We will isolate and identify exactly which tools provide these advanced behavioral-based triggers within their free ecosystems. Fourth, we will critically evaluate the user interface logic and the depth of their provided template ecosystems. As a startup founder wearing multiple hats, your time is arguably your most finite and valuable asset. You simply cannot afford to spend 10 frustrating hours attempting to code custom HTML email layouts from scratch. We will prioritize platforms offering highly intuitive, friction-free drag-and-drop visual builders alongside extensive, modern libraries of professionally designed templates. These must be assets that you can customize in mere minutes to maintain a consistently premium, trustworthy brand image across all client touchpoints. Finally, we will consider the broader technical integration ecosystem. Your chosen email marketing architecture cannot exist in an isolated vacuum. It must communicate automatically and seamlessly with your existing website content management system, your preferred customer relationship management software, and your primary payment processing gateways. We will deeply analyze both the native, out-of-the-box integrations and the underlying application programming interface flexibility of every single contender on our list. By arming you with this highly granular step-by-step technical breakdown, this masterclass directly solves the critical, paralyzing problem of marketing technology overwhelm. You will be fully equipped to make a highly confident, data-informed infrastructure decision today, seamlessly implement a robust, enterprise-grade communication framework tonight and immediately begin systematically building the single most valuable, insulated asset your startup can ever own. A highly engaged, perfectly segmented, and hyper-responsive list of dedicated subscribers. Prepare to take extensive notes, eliminate all surrounding distractions, and focus entirely on the data presented. Because we are leaving absolutely no stone unturned as we meticulously engineer your zero-cost marketing foundation from the ground up. Let us begin our forensic analysis with the first heavyweight contender on our list, a platform that has completely redefined the baseline expectations for free email marketing software in the year 2026. We are examining MailerLite. For years, the industry standard was monopolized by legacy platforms that offered seemingly generous free tiers, only to severely restrict your access to the exact features necessary to actually generate revenue. MailerLite fundamentally disrupts this predatory model by providing a highly robust, enterprise-grade architecture at absolutely zero cost for your first 1,000 subscribers. But we must look far beyond that superficial subscriber count. The true value of this platform lies in its sending volume allowance, granting you the ability to transmit up to 12,000 emails every single month. To truly understand the magnitude of this allocation, we must break down the mathematics of early-stage customer acquisition. Imagine if you are a newly minted founder named Sarah, operating a boutique software-as-a-service application out of Austin, Texas, in the current year of 2026. You have just launched your minimum viable product, and you are operating on a completely bootstrapped budget. You do not have the luxury of spending $5,000 a month on paid advertising. Instead, you deploy MailerLite. If you are systematically acquiring 10 highly qualified leads per day through organic content marketing on professional networking platforms, it will take you precisely 100 days to reach that 1,000 subscriber threshold. That provides your startup with over 3 full months of operational runway to rigorously test your messaging, validate your product market fit, and convert a percentage of those free leads into paying customers before you ever have to allocate operational budget toward software overhead. During those critical first 3 months, Sarah is not just collecting contact records and letting them sit dormant in a database. She is leveraging the surprisingly advanced visual automation builder provided by MailerLite, which is fully accessible and fully functional on their completely free tier. This is a massive competitive advantage for early-stage founders. Historically, visual automation builders equipped with complex conditional logic were strictly reserved for premium software platforms that demanded significant monthly investments. Let us walk through exactly how Sarah constructs her zero-cost conversion engine step by step. When a prospective user lands on her website and submits their contact information in exchange for a free digital resource, such as a comprehensive industry data report, they are automatically deposited into a highly structured, multi-day onboarding sequence. On day 1, the system instantaneously delivers the promised resource alongside a warm, personalized welcome message. This immediate fulfillment establishes foundational trust and validates the initial value exchange. On day 2, the automation introduces a specific delay timer, waiting precisely 24 hours before triggering the second communication. This second email does not ask for a sale or push an aggressive conversion metric. Instead, it highlights a detailed case study demonstrating how a similar enterprise successfully utilized Sarah's software to streamline their internal operations. We rely on these historical trends and documented case studies to build authority, completely avoiding any aggressive, hyperbolic, or potentially non-compliant marketing language. By day 4, the system utilizes advanced conditional logic to automatically verify if the subscriber actually opened the previous case study communication. If the analytics indicate an open event, the subscriber receives a highly targeted invitation to register for a live, interactive demonstration of the software platform. If the analytics indicate they did not open the previous email, the subscriber is routed down a completely different automated path that provides an alternative angle of educational value, perhaps focusing on a different feature set or a distinct industry pain point. This level of behavioral segmentation allows a single founder to mathematically simulate the highly personalized marketing output of an entire dedicated agency team. Furthermore, the platform provides an extensive library of exceptionally modern, mobile-responsive drag-and-drop templates. You do not need to understand a single line of complex markup languages or cascading style sheets. You simply drag text blocks, image carousels, dynamic call-to-action buttons, and social integration modules directly onto the digital canvas. This drastically reduces the time required to deploy professional campaigns, allowing you to quickly iterate on your messaging while maintaining a consistently premium, trustworthy brand image across all client touchpoints. However, the true defining characteristic of MailerLite, and the primary reason it secures the foundational position in our masterclass today, is its almost obsessive, militant focus on deliverability rates. Many inferior free platforms allow absolutely anyone to register an account and immediately begin transmitting thousands of unsolicited messages. This reckless behavior permanently damages the reputation of the shared Internet Protocol addresses that all free users must utilize on those networks. Consequently, even if you are sending highly legitimate, incredibly valuable content, your emails are heavily penalized by major inbox providers simply because you are sharing an infrastructure with bad actors. Your critical communications end up buried in the promotional tab or flagged directly as spam. MailerLite combats this massive industry problem by enforcing an exceptionally strict, manual approval process for every single new account. When you register your startup, you are required to submit your website domain, explain your business model in detail, and explicitly define exactly how you intend to legally and ethically collect your subscribers. A human compliance officer actually reviews your application before granting you full sending privileges. While this mandatory friction step might initially seem frustrating for a founder eager to launch immediately, it is actually the greatest protective measure you could possibly ask for. By systematically filtering out non-compliant operators, MailerLite hyperprotects the integrity of their shared server pools. The potential outcome for your startup is a significantly higher probability that your critical onboarding sequences will successfully bypass aggressive corporate firewalls and securely land in the primary inbox of your target demographic. We must also examine the ecosystem of third-party integrations, because a marketing tool that exists in an isolated vacuum is virtually useless for a scaling enterprise. MailerLite natively connects with the vast majority of critical startup infrastructure. Whether you are hosting your web presence on major content management systems or utilizing specialized landing page builders, integrating your primary lead capture forms requires nothing more than copying and pasting a single string of application programming interface text. The synchronization of your contacts occurs instantaneously and flawlessly, ensuring that your central database remains perfectly updated in real time without requiring manual data entry. But as incredibly robust as this platform is for digital product creators, software founders, and service providers, it possesses a very distinct, inherent limitation when we shift our operational focus toward high-volume physical product sales. If you are running an aggressive e-commerce operation, you require a platform that not only handles email but integrates seamlessly with short message service, text marketing, and complex, inventory-driven customer data platforms. MailerLite begins to show significant structural cracks when tasked with the sheer volume of behavioral data generated by a rapidly scaling digital storefront. If your startup relies on recovering highly specific abandoned shopping carts, tracking complex physical inventory purchasing habits across multiple variants, and deploying cross-channel text message blasts simultaneously, staying on this initial platform will eventually choke your revenue growth. You will require a completely different architecture specifically engineered from the ground up to handle the relentless, data-heavy demands of modern electronic commerce. And that precise operational bottleneck leads us directly into the second, highly specialized tool on our list, a platform that completely dominates the e-commerce landscape but hides a massive, potentially catastrophic pricing trap that you must understand before you even think about creating an account. Enter Klaviyo. In the current year of 2026, if you are operating a direct-to-consumer brand within the United States, utilizing any other foundational architecture is arguably a massive operational misstep. Klaviyo is not merely an email marketing service provider. It is a highly sophisticated customer data platform that happens to utilize electronic mail as its primary output mechanism. To understand the profound difference, we must visualize the exact data architecture required to scale a physical product enterprise. Imagine if you are a founder named David, operating a specialized direct-to-consumer athletic apparel startup based out of Chicago, Illinois. David has just launched his digital storefront on a major electronic commerce platform like Shopify or BigCommerce. If David connects a generic entry-level email tool to his store, that tool only understands binary superficial metrics. It knows if a customer joined a list, opened an email, or clicked a generic link. It operates completely blind to the actual commercial behavior occurring on the website. Klaviyo fundamentally alters this dynamic by injecting a proprietary tracking script directly into the foundational code of David's digital storefront. This integration happens instantaneously and requires zero knowledge of software engineering. Once that script is active, Klaviyo begins constructing a highly detailed, behavioral fingerprint for every single visitor who interacts with the brand. It tracks precisely when a user is active on the site. It records the exact moment they view a specific product variant, such as a medium-sized red running jacket. It logs the exact millisecond they add that item to their digital cart, and it meticulously monitors their progression through the checkout sequence. This level of granular behavioral surveillance allows David to deploy marketing campaigns that respond directly to the consumer's psychological intent, rather than simply blasting generic promotional messages and hoping for a conversion. Let us deeply analyze how David utilizes this data to construct a highly profitable, fully automated abandoned cart recovery system, entirely within the confines of Klaviyo's zero-cost tier. Historical trends in the electronic commerce sector indicate that approximately 70% of all digital shopping carts are abandoned before the transaction is finalized. This represents a catastrophic hemorrhage of potential revenue for a bootstrapped startup. To plug this leak, David logs into the Visual Flow Builder. Instead of a basic time delay trigger, he selects a highly specific behavioral trigger called Checkout Started. He then immediately applies a strict conditional filter that dictates the automation must immediately halt if the customer subsequently triggers a placed order event. This ensures that a customer who successfully completes their purchase is never accidentally badgered to buy the exact same item again, which would severely damage the brand's credibility. Once the logic is established, David programs a precise 1-hour delay. After 60 minutes of inactivity, the system deploys the first communication. Because Klaviyo has captured the exact product data, David does not need to send a generic reminder. The software automatically dynamically populates the email with a high-resolution image of the exact red running jacket the user was looking at, alongside its specific price and a direct, frictionless link back to their preserved cart. If that initial message does not result in a recovered transaction, the system initiates a 24-hour delay. The second communication is engineered entirely around objection handling. David utilizes documented case studies and authentic customer testimonials highlighting the durability and comfort of the apparel, directly addressing the underlying hesitation that likely caused the abandonment. If the cart remains abandoned after 48 hours, the system deploys a final communication offering a highly controlled, margin-protective financial incentive, such as complimentary domestic shipping or a nominal percentage discount, to definitively push the prospect over the conversion threshold. This entire sophisticated, revenue-generating architecture can be built, tested, and deployed without spending a single dollar on software infrastructure. However, this is precisely where the catastrophic pricing trap snaps shut on unsuspecting founders. Klaviyo provides you with unfettered access to these incredibly advanced enterprise features on their free tier, because they know exactly how addictive and effective this level of behavioral marketing is. But their zero-cost tier is strictly mathematically constrained. As of our current analysis, the free allocation limits your database to a maximum of 250 active profiles and restricts your total sending volume to exactly 500 emails per month. Let us examine the harsh mathematical reality of those limits. If David's Chicago-based startup begins generating even a modest volume of organic search traffic, perhaps acquiring just 10 new email subscribers per day, he will completely exhaust his free profile allocation in precisely 25 days. The moment that 251st subscriber enters the system, the automation flows freeze, the campaigns are locked, and the platform immediately demands a paid subscription to resume operations. Because the platform is so deeply integrated into the revenue engine of the business, founders feel immense psychological pressure to simply hand over their corporate credit card. As the database grows to 5,000, 10,000, or 50,000 contacts, the monthly recurring revenue extracted by the software company scales aggressively, often reaching hundreds or even thousands of dollars per month. Therefore, to survive and thrive on this platform without prematurely depleting your operating capital, you must implement a rigorous, almost ruthless strategy of active profile suppression. This is the critical secret that successful bootstrapped founders utilize to extend their zero-cost runway. You must understand the fundamental difference between an active profile and a suppressed profile. An active profile is a contact who is eligible to receive your marketing communications and counts against your strict 250-person limit. A suppressed profile remains in your database with their entire purchase history intact, but they are completely blocked from receiving emails and, crucially, they cost you absolutely nothing to store. To exploit this mechanic, You must program a dynamic segmentation rule that continuously monitors the engagement levels of your audience. If a subscriber has not opened an email, clicked a link, or visited your digital storefront within a strict 30-day window, your system must automatically flag them for immediate suppression. By systematically pruning your list and constantly suppressing inactive, unengaged users, you ensure that your precious 250 available slots are occupied exclusively by hyper-responsive, high-intent potential buyers. You are effectively trading raw database size for extreme list quality, maintaining your software costs at zero, while maximizing the potential outcomes of your automated conversion systems. When your startup eventually generates sufficient, predictable cash flow to easily absorb the premium subscription costs, you can then relax these suppression rules and begin scaling your top-of-funnel acquisition strategies without the fear of financial ruin. Klaviyo is an absolute powerhouse for founders selling physical goods, but its strict profile limits and commerce-heavy architecture make it a remarkably poor choice for founders operating in fundamentally different economic sectors. What if your startup does not sell physical running jackets or ethically sourced coffee? What if you are operating a highly complex, service-based consultancy, a local real estate brokerage, or a specialized business-to-business agency? You do not need dynamic product blocks or checkout tracking. You need a centralized customer relationship management system flawlessly fused with an unlimited email marketing engine, allowing you to track long-term sales pipelines, log individual client telephone calls, and deploy targeted educational content across an extended, multi-month buying cycle. You need a platform that completely inverts the pricing model we just discussed, offering an absolutely staggering allowance of contacts and features for $0, but hiding a radically different onboarding complexity that consistently baffles and defeats 99% of impatient founders who attempt to configure it. Let us dive directly into the third tool on our list, a corporate behemoth that offers the single most generous free tier in the entire digital economy, provided you know exactly which hidden settings to manipulate. That massive corporate behemoth is HubSpot. To truly comprehend the sheer scale of what HubSpot offers at zero cost in the current year of 2026, you must fundamentally shift your entire conceptual framework regarding what an email marketing platform actually is. The previous tools we have analyzed are primarily list-centric. You input an email address, and the software sends a message to that address. HubSpot, conversely, is entirely contact-centric. It is an enterprise-grade customer relationship management system, commonly referred to as a CRM, that features a highly capable email marketing engine built directly into its core architecture. This distinction is not merely semantics. It dictates the entire operational strategy of your business. Imagine if you are a founder named Michael, operating a highly specialized commercial real estate brokerage in Dallas, Texas. Michael does not sell $50 physical products to anonymous consumers online. He facilitates multi-million-dollar lease agreements for corporate clients. His sales cycle does not last 48 hours. It stretches across 6 to 18 agonizing months of negotiations, site visits, and board approvals. If Michael attempts to use a standard e-commerce email tool, he will fail completely. He requires a centralized, immutable database that tracks every single micro-interaction over a prolonged timeline. This is exactly where the HubSpot free tier becomes an unparalleled operational asset. When Michael creates his zero-cost account, he is granted the ability to store up to 1 million individual contact records. This is a staggering allowance that effectively means a service-based startup will never, ever run out of database space. But the true magic occurs in the data enrichment process. When a prospective corporate client visits Michael's website and fills out a lead capture form to download a proprietary Dallas market analysis report, they only need to provide their corporate email address. The moment that email address enters the HubSpot architecture, the system automatically deploys a background process known as HubSpot Insights. It scours the public internet, matching the domain name of the email address to a massive proprietary database. Within milliseconds, Michael's zero-cost CRM automatically populates the prospect's profile with their company's physical location, their estimated annual revenue, their total employee headcount, and their corporate social media profiles. Michael possesses a complete, highly detailed dossier on his prospect before he ever picks up the telephone. Furthermore, Michael seamlessly integrates his standard business email client, whether that is Gmail or Outlook, directly into the HubSpot platform. From that moment forward, every single one-to-one email he sends to a prospect is automatically logged into the CRM timeline. Every telephone call he makes can be tracked, and his detailed meeting notes are permanently attached to that specific client profile. He can visually map his entire sales pipeline, dragging and dropping high-value prospects from the initial contact stage all the way to the closed-won column. But how does the mass email marketing component function within this heavy CRM environment? With incredible precision. Because Michael has access to all of this enriched company data, he does not just send a generic newsletter to his entire list. He uses the free marketing email tool to build hyper-segmented audiences. He can instruct the system to instantly isolate every contact in his database who operates in the logistics sector, has over 50 employees, and has not been contacted in the last 90 days. He then utilizes the drag-and-drop email builder to craft a highly targeted communication specifically discussing industrial warehouse availability, and he deploys it exclusively to that exact segment. Historical trends in the business-to-business sector overwhelmingly indicate that this level of extreme personalization dramatically increases potential outcomes for meeting bookings and ultimately drives higher top-line revenue. However, we must address the hidden settings and the massive psychological traps engineered into this platform. HubSpot is a publicly traded corporation, and their ultimate goal is to transition you from their free tier to their premium enterprise software hubs, which can rapidly escalate to thousands of dollars per month. When you log into the dashboard, you are immediately confronted with a bewildering, complex labyrinth of navigation menus. You will see tabs for the Sales Hub, the Service Hub, the Operations Hub, and the Content Management System Hub. If you click on these tabs out of simple curiosity, you will be constantly bombarded with aggressive upgrade prompts and locked feature screens. It is incredibly easy for a solo founder to experience complete software paralysis, assuming the tool is too complex to utilize. To survive and extract maximum value from HubSpot, you must practice extreme operational discipline. You must entirely ignore 90% of the navigation bar and strictly confine your daily activities to just two areas: the Contacts tab and the Marketing Email tab. Furthermore, you must deeply understand the mathematical constraints placed on the free email sending volume. While you can store 1 million contacts, the free tier strictly limits your marketing email sends to 2,000 messages per calendar month. For an e-commerce brand, 2,000 emails is completely useless. But for Michael, managing a highly curated pipeline of 300 high-net-worth commercial real estate prospects, 2,000 sends per month allows him to communicate with his entire database 6 times over, which is more than enough volume to maintain top-of-mind awareness without becoming an annoyance. There is one final unavoidable concession you must make to utilize this enterprise infrastructure for free. Every single marketing email you transmit will feature a permanent, non-removable HubSpot watermark at the very bottom of the template. For some highly image-conscious consumer brands, this co-branding is completely unacceptable. But for a business-to-business consultancy, a local agency, or a service provider where the sheer quality of the insights you are providing heavily outweighs minor aesthetic details, it is a remarkably small price to pay for accessing a CRM engine of this magnitude. HubSpot is the undisputed king for high-ticket, long-cycle sales operations. But what if your entire business model is completely different? What if you are not tracking multi-million-dollar deals over 18 months? What if you are a writer, a financial analyst, an independent journalist, or a pure digital content creator who considers the written email itself to be the final monetizable product? For this specific breed of founder, HubSpot's heavy, data-dense CRM architecture is massive overkill. It is slow, it is clunky, and it completely misses the point of a modern, creator-led business. You do not need to track company revenue or employee headcounts. You need a streamlined platform that strips away all the corporate bloat, provides a beautiful, distraction-free writing interface, and fundamentally helps you grow your audience organically without relying on paid advertising. You need a platform that acts less like a corporate database and more like a sovereign publication network, featuring a hidden, internal recommendation engine that feels almost like an unfair advantage for early-stage growth. And that specific requirement brings us directly to the fourth highly disruptive tool on our list, a platform that is currently reshaping the entire digital publishing landscape from the inside out. That fourth tool is Substack. In the rapidly evolving digital economy of 2026, we are witnessing a massive structural shift in how independent creators, industry analysts, and specialized journalists build highly leveraged businesses. For this specific demographic, the traditional definition of an email marketing platform is entirely obsolete. If your core business model revolves around producing high-value written content, where the newsletter itself is the primary product rather than a promotional vehicle for a secondary physical item, Attempting to force your operations into a complex commerce engine or a heavy corporate database is a recipe for complete operational burnout. Substack fundamentally rejects the entire premise of the traditional marketing funnel. It strips away the visual automation builders, the complex conditional logic pathways, and the aggressive sales pipeline tracking mechanisms. In their place, it provides an aggressively minimalist, distraction-free digital canvas engineered specifically for the pure act of sovereign publishing. But the true revolutionary power of this platform, and the reason it secures a dominant position in our masterclass, is its absolute destruction of the traditional subscriber pricing model. Unlike almost every other platform in existence that penalizes your success by charging you progressively higher monthly fees as your audience grows, Substack allows you to host an unlimited number of subscribers and transmit an unlimited volume of emails every single month for exactly $0. Let us deeply analyze how this unique architecture functions through a highly specific case study. Imagine if you are a founder named Jessica, operating an independent financial analysis startup out of New York City. Jessica specializes in producing highly technical, deeply researched macroeconomic reports detailing emerging market historical trends and complex supply chain shifts. She does not sell software subscriptions, and she does not broker real estate. Her ultimate goal is to build an audience of 10,000 dedicated investors and eventually convert a small percentage of them into paying supporters. If Jessica attempts to build this operation on a legacy platform, the moment she reaches 10,000 free subscribers, she will be instantly hit with a devastating monthly invoice of several $100s, completely draining her operating capital before she has even launched her monetization strategy. By deploying Substack, Jessica entirely eliminates this catastrophic financial risk. She can spend the next 18 months systematically publishing her deep dive reports, growing her list from 0 to 50,000 readers, and she will never receive a single invoice for hosting or transmission. However, the zero-cost infrastructure is only the baseline advantage. The true unprecedented power of Substack lies entirely in its proprietary internal growth architecture, known as the recommendation network. Historically, the single most difficult challenge for any independent writer or digital media startup is top-of-funnel audience acquisition. You are forced to rely on renting attention from aggressive social media algorithms, praying that a single post goes viral, or spending massive amounts of capital on paid search advertisements. Substack completely short-circuits this massive structural problem by turning its entire global user base into a synchronized, cross-promotional growth engine. When a new reader lands on Jessica's publication and inputs their email address to subscribe to her free financial reports, the platform immediately intercepts the user experience. Before the reader is even redirected to the main publication page, a highly optimized digital modal appears on their screen. This modal explicitly recommends 3 to 5 other highly relevant, tangential publications operating within the exact same macroeconomic niche. Because Jessica has actively networked with other financial analysts on the platform, she has established mutual recommendation pacts. When her peers acquire a new subscriber, their publications automatically recommend Jessica's newsletter to that fresh, highly engaged lead. This creates a massive compounding loop of organic audience crossover. Documented case studies across the digital publishing sector currently indicate that founders utilizing this specific recommendation infrastructure are generating up to 40% of their total audience growth entirely passively, directly from the network itself, without spending a single dollar on traditional marketing channels. This radically shifts the unit economics of building a media startup. You are no longer fighting in isolation against aggressive social media algorithms. You are actively drafted into a massive interconnected web of sovereign publishers who are structurally incentivized to help each other scale. Furthermore, we must examine the seamless, completely frictionless path to monetization that is permanently baked into the platform. While you can operate your free publication infinitely without ever paying a dime, Substack is ultimately a business, and they generate their revenue through a highly aligned incentive structure. When Jessica decides that she has built a sufficient baseline of trust and authority, she can simply toggle a switch within her dashboard to activate a premium, paid tier for her most dedicated readers. She might offer exclusive, real-time market updates or private community access for $10 a month. Substack seamlessly handles the entire complex payment processing infrastructure, automatically managing the secure credit card transactions, processing the monthly recurring billing cycles, and handling all digital subscription management on the back end. In exchange for providing this complete, end-to-end operational stack, The platform simply deducts a flat 10% fee strictly from the actual revenue generated by the paid subscriptions. If Jessica makes $0, she pays $0. If she generates $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, she happily surrenders $1,000 for the complete removal of all technical debt and infrastructure maintenance. This model represents the ultimate alignment of platform and creator. But to maintain complete transparency in this masterclass, we must meticulously dissect the severe technical trade-offs required to access this elegant simplicity. By choosing Substack, you are entirely sacrificing the ability to truly customize the aesthetic presentation of your brand. You cannot inject custom cascading style sheets. You cannot build highly complex, dynamic product carousels. Every single newsletter published on the platform looks fundamentally identical, relying entirely on the strength of the written word and the quality of the attached imagery to stand out. More importantly, you have absolutely zero access to advanced back-end integrations. You cannot connect your Substack directly to a third-party customer relationship management system to track offline sales calls. You cannot set up complex, multi-day automated onboarding sequences that branch based on specific user behavior. The system is rigidly chronological. You write a post, you hit publish, and it goes to the inbox. That is the entire operational loop. For the pure writer, the independent analyst, or the specialized journalist, this extreme limitation is actually a massive psychological benefit, completely removing the paralyzing friction of software configuration. But what if your startup exists in the highly lucrative, rapidly expanding middle ground? What if you are building a massive modern digital media brand similar to major industry newsletters, where the content is indeed the primary product, but you absolutely require the heavy, robust application programming interface integrations, the entirely custom brand aesthetics, and the advanced multi-tier automated referral programs that Substack completely ignores? You cannot survive on a rigidly chronological publishing tool, but you also cannot afford the bloated corporate databases of the legacy platforms. You require a highly specialized, hypermodern hybrid engine built exclusively for scale. And that exact operational necessity leads us directly into the fifth and final software architecture on our masterclass list, a platform that has rapidly become the absolute gold standard for high-growth media companies. That platform is Behave. In the fiercely competitive digital landscape of the current year 2026, Behave has systematically engineered a complete paradigm shift, fundamentally rewriting the foundational architecture of what a modern email marketing application should look like for ambitious media startups. We must understand that building a massively scalable digital publication is entirely different from running a traditional software company or an electronic commerce storefront. If your primary objective is to aggregate human attention, synthesize complex information, and distribute that intellectual property directly to the primary inbox, you require an operating system that completely bridges the massive chasm between a rigid, text-only publishing tool and a hypercomplex, bloated corporate database. You need absolute brand sovereignty, granular application programming interface access, and a suite of integrated growth mechanisms that do not penalize your success by aggressively taxing your audience acquisition. Let us meticulously break down the exact mathematical constraints and the overwhelming operational advantages of the Behave zero-cost entry tier, internally designated as the launch plan. Unlike legacy platforms that intentionally throttle your early momentum, Behave provides a staggering initial allowance. You are permitted to aggressively scale your internal database to 2,500 active subscribers, and you are granted the capability to transmit an absolutely unlimited volume of electronic mail every single calendar month, all for precisely $0. To fully grasp the sheer operational velocity this allows, we must deploy a highly specific, real-world scenario. Imagine if you are a founder named Marcus, operating a rapidly scaling daily artificial intelligence and emerging technology briefing out of Seattle, Washington. Marcus is a former data scientist who has recognized a massive market inefficiency in how corporate executives consume specialized technical news. His business model relies on curating the most critical daily advancements in machine learning, summarizing them into highly digestible, 5-minute morning reads, and distributing them to a highly targeted audience of software engineers and venture capitalists. Because Marcus operates a daily publication, he is transmitting 30 distinct email campaigns every single month. If he were utilizing a platform with a strictly capped monthly sending volume, his operation would mathematically collapse within the first week. By deploying Behave, Marcus completely neutralizes this transmission risk. He can securely scale his audience to 2,499 high net worth readers, and send them a highly technical dispatch every single morning without ever triggering a paywall or incurring a single cent in software overhead. But the sheer volume allowance is merely the baseline of this architectural marvel. The true competitive advantage of Behave lies in its absolute dedication to brand sovereignty and aesthetic control. We previously established that minimalist platforms severely restrict your visual identity, forcing your intellectual property into a standardized, chronological uniform that looks identical to millions of other creators. Marcus simply cannot afford to look like a generic amateur when he is pitching his daily briefing to elite venture capital firms in Seattle. He requires a platform that allows him to systematically engineer a completely bespoke, hyper-premium visual experience. When Marcus logs into the visual editor on his free Behave account, he is granted total, unfettered access to manipulate the underlying cascading style sheets and the hypertext markup language frameworks of his publication. He can precisely calibrate the exact hexadecimal color codes of his brand, manipulate the specific typography to ensure maximum legibility on mobile devices, and construct highly complex, dynamic content blocks that seamlessly integrate his proprietary data visualizations directly into the body of the email. He builds a trusted, institutional-grade media asset that instantly commands authority the millisecond it renders in the prospect's inbox. Furthermore, we must forensically analyze the proprietary analytics engine that powers the backend of this platform. In the media business, data is not merely a metric. It is the fundamental currency of your entire operation. Legacy tools provide extremely superficial binary data points, such as raw open rates and generic click-through percentages. These outdated metrics are dangerously misleading in the year 2026, heavily distorted by aggressive corporate privacy firewalls and automated machine opens. Marcus does not rely on vanity metrics. When he navigates to the native analytics dashboard, he accesses a highly sophisticated, three-dimensional behavioral map. The system actively tracks the precise click-through velocity of every single hyperlink embedded within his daily briefing. It systematically isolates exactly which specific topics, which specific headlines, and which specific external resources generated the highest degree of user engagement. Historical trends in the digital publishing sector overwhelmingly indicate that founders who utilize this level of granular, data-driven feedback loop dramatically increase their potential outcomes for long-term audience retention. Marcus is not guessing what his audience wants. He is systematically engineering his future editorial calendar based on hard mathematical reality. We must also deeply examine the internal growth architecture embedded within the platform. Similar to the minimalist publishing networks, Behave features a highly robust, interconnected recommendation engine. However, it executes this mechanism without locking you into a walled garden. Marcus can seamlessly partner with other high-growth newsletters operating in tangential sectors, such as decentralized finance or global supply chain logistics. When a user subscribes to a partner publication, they are immediately presented with a highly optimized, white-labeled modal recommending Marcus's artificial intelligence briefing. This creates a powerful, compounding engine of organic audience acquisition. Documented case studies demonstrate that utilizing these integrated recommendation networks can significantly drive down the blended cost of customer acquisition, allowing bootstrap founders to aggressively scale their top-of-funnel operations without completely depleting their financial runway on highly volatile social media advertising campaigns. Crucially, Behave completely future-proofs your eventual monetization strategy. While you are operating strictly on the free launch tier to build your initial critical mass, the platform is quietly establishing the infrastructure for your eventual transition into a highly profitable enterprise. When Marcus is ready to monetize, he does not need to migrate his massive database to a new platform or integrate clunky third-party payment gateways. The system natively supports premium paid subscriptions, allowing him to effortlessly gate specific, high-value technical deep dives behind a secure paywall. More impressively, it features an integrated, proprietary advertising network. Once Marcus crosses specific, publicly documented subscriber thresholds, he can literally flip a toggle switch within his dashboard and immediately begin receiving highly relevant, premium sponsorship placements from massive enterprise software companies directly into his editor. The platform facilitates the entire transaction, from securing the advertiser to dynamically injecting the copy, completely removing the massive operational friction of managing an internal outbound sales team. By systematically evaluating MailerLite for automated digital product delivery, Klaviyo for highly complex electronic commerce tracking, HubSpot for high-ticket corporate sales pipelines, Substack for minimalist sovereign publishing, and Behave for aggressively scaling modern media brands, you now possess a complete, master-level understanding of the exact zero-cost software infrastructure required to launch any conceivable United States startup. You have successfully selected the precise weapon that flawlessly aligns with your specific operational architecture. You have eliminated the massive psychological barrier of software overwhelm. But possessing the ultimate marketing tool is completely meaningless if you fundamentally fail to understand the invisible, highly complex, and utterly unforgiving technical battlefield that exists between your sending server and your prospect's primary inbox. Right now, as we speak, billions of legitimate, highly valuable business emails are being silently intercepted, completely destroyed, and permanently routed to the spam folder by aggressive corporate firewalls, all because the founders completely ignored the mandatory non-negotiable process of cryptographic domain authentication. If you do not execute the exact, highly technical sequence of server-level configurations that we are about to dissect, your entire marketing operation will collapse before you even transmit your very first campaign. Welcome to the invisible, highly complex technical battlefield of domain authentication. In the current year of 2026, major inbox providers like Google and Yahoo have completely weaponized their algorithmic spam filters. Historical trends over the past 36 months indicate a massive coordinated crackdown on unauthenticated senders. If you simply register a domain name, sign up for one of the 5 free platforms we just analyzed, and immediately blast your first newsletter without configuring your server architecture, your potential outcomes are statistically disastrous. Your messages will not even reach the spam folder. They will be aggressively rejected at the server level, resulting in catastrophic bounce rates that will permanently blacklist your domain name across the entire global Internet Protocol network. To completely immunize your startup against this digital death sentence, you must meticulously implement 3 distinct, highly technical cryptographic protocols. We are going to forensically dissect each one right now. Imagine if you are a founder named Robert, operating an innovative supply chain logistics software company based in Denver, Colorado. Robert spent 6 months and $50,000 developing his proprietary application. He spent another 3 weeks crafting the absolute perfect launch email sequence using his free HubSpot tier. He possesses a highly targeted list of 500 logistics executives. On launch day, he presses send. He expects a flood of demo requests. Instead, he experiences absolute terrifying silence. When he finally checks his analytics dashboard 72 hours later, he discovers a 98% bounce rate. His entire launch was silently destroyed because he failed to understand the first mandatory protocol, the Sender Policy Framework, universally known as SPF. Think of the Sender Policy Framework as a highly exclusive, cryptographically verified guest list for a high-security corporate facility. When Robert's marketing email arrives at the receiving server of a massive logistics corporation, that receiving firewall immediately pauses the transmission. It essentially asks a fundamental question: who is actually authorized to send mail on behalf of Robert's domain name? The firewall performs an automated, instantaneous background check by querying the domain name system records associated with Robert's website. It is looking for a highly specific line of text, known as a TXT record, that publicly lists the exact Internet Protocol addresses and software platforms that Robert has officially approved. Because Robert skipped this crucial technical step, the receiving firewall found no such record. It immediately assumed that a malicious third-party actor was attempting to impersonate Robert's logistics company to deploy a phishing attack. The firewall violently rejected the transmission, protecting its corporate network, but entirely devastating Robert's business launch. To correctly implement the Sender Policy Framework, you must log into the exact registrar where you purchased your website domain, whether that is GoDaddy, Namecheap, or Cloudflare. You must navigate to the Advanced Domain Name System Management dashboard and manually inject a specific string of text provided directly by your chosen email marketing platform. This text acts as your public declaration to the global internet that platforms like MailerLite, Klaviyo, or Behave are fully authorized to handle your outbound communications. However, possessing a verified guest list is entirely insufficient in the hypersecure digital economy of 2026. You must also prove that the contents of your message were not maliciously altered while in transit across the global network. This absolute requirement introduces the second mandatory pillar of server-level configuration: Domain Keys Identified Mail, fundamentally known as DKIM. If the Sender Policy Framework is your public guest list, DKIM is a highly complex, cryptographic wax seal stamped directly onto every single email you transmit. When you activate DKIM within your marketing platform, the software generates two distinct cryptographic keys. One is a private key, strictly guarded and hidden entirely within the internal architecture of your sending platform. The other is a public key, which you must manually publish within your domain name system records, sitting directly alongside your SPF record. Let us observe exactly how this cryptographic handshake functions in real time. When you hit send on your startup newsletter, your marketing platform utilizes its hidden private key to mathematically generate a unique, highly complex digital signature. This signature is completely invisible to the human eye, but is permanently embedded within the hidden header data of your email. When the message arrives at your prospect's inbox, the receiving server immediately recognizes the presence of this digital signature. The server then rapidly queries your public domain name system records, retrieves your public key, and attempts to solve the cryptographic puzzle. If the public key perfectly decrypts the signature generated by the private key, the receiving server possesses absolute, mathematically proven certainty that the email genuinely originated from your authorized platform, and that not a single character of your message was intercepted or altered during transmission. If you fail to configure DKIM, modern corporate firewalls will immediately flag your communication as highly suspicious, drastically increasing the probability that your critical onboarding sequences will be routed directly to the promotional tab or the spam folder, severely crippling your potential outcomes for revenue generation. Finally, we must implement the ultimate enforcer, the supreme overarching policy that governs the entire authentication ecosystem. Domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance, universally referred to as DMARC. Even if you have flawlessly configured your SPF guest list and your DKIM wax seal, you are still operating entirely blind without DMARC. Think of DMARC as a sophisticated security camera system, combined with a highly aggressive enforcement policy. It is a third, distinct domain name system record that you must publish, and it serves two absolutely critical functions for your startup. First, it explicitly dictates to the receiving inbox providers exactly what they must do. If an email claiming to be from your domain somehow fails both the SPF and DKIM security checks, you can instruct the receiving server to do nothing, which is highly unadvised. You can instruct them to quarantine the suspicious message, routing it to the spam folder. Or you can mandate a strict reject policy, ordering the receiving server to completely destroy the unauthorized transmission before it ever reaches a human being. This strict reject policy is the ultimate defense against sophisticated phishing campaigns attempting to hijack your hard-earned brand reputation. Second, and arguably most important for a rapidly scaling enterprise, DMARC transforms your domain from a passive broadcasting tool into a highly active intelligence-gathering network. When you configure this record, major inbox providers like Google and Microsoft will begin sending you highly detailed, daily cryptographic forensic reports. These highly technical documents reveal exactly who across the entire global internet is attempting to send email utilizing your domain name, highlighting precisely which transmissions passed authentication and which ones failed. By meticulously analyzing these historical trends, you can rapidly identify and neutralize malicious actors attempting to impersonate your startup, while simultaneously identifying and correcting internal misconfigurations within your own legitimate software infrastructure. By rigorously executing the precise step-by-step implementation of the Sender Policy Framework, Domain Keys Identified Mail, and DMARC, you have successfully transformed your domain name from a highly vulnerable, untrusted digital entity into a mathematically verified, enterprise-grade broadcasting fortress. You have systematically eliminated the catastrophic technical risks that destroy 90% of early-stage email marketing operations. Your chosen software architecture is deployed. Your server infrastructure is heavily fortified. You possess the absolute optimal capacity to deliver your message securely to the primary inbox. But we have arrived at a massive, undeniable, and potentially fatal operational crossroad. You have built the perfect digital highway, but your database is currently completely empty. No one knows who you are. No one cares about your startup. And absolutely no one is simply going to hand over their highly guarded personal email address just because you added a generic, uninspiring newsletter subscription box to the footer of your website. If you want to systematically engineer an explosive, highly predictable influx of high-intent prospects into your newly fortified database, you must master the high-stakes psychological warfare of the digital value exchange. You must learn exactly how to construct an irresistible, asymmetrical lead generation asset that forces your target demographic to surrender their contact information. and the exact psychological frameworks and structural mechanics required to build that specific asset are precisely what we must meticulously dissect right now. The era of the generic newsletter subscription box is completely and permanently dead. If you place a static form in the footer of your website that simply asks visitors to join your mailing list for weekly updates, your potential outcomes for audience acquisition will hover perilously close to absolute zero. In the current digital economy of 2026, an active primary email address is a highly guarded personal asset. Consumers treat their digital inboxes like fortified vaults, relentlessly defending them against the relentless onslaught of corporate spam and useless promotional clutter. To successfully breach that fortress and convince a complete stranger to willingly hand over their direct line of communication, you must engineer a psychological event known as an asymmetrical digital value exchange. You must offer an introductory asset of such overwhelming, immediate utility that the prospect feels fundamentally foolish for not accepting the transaction. You are essentially providing a highly specialized digital product that realistically could be sold for $50 to $100 on the open market, and you are charging exactly one email address as the total purchase price. Let us deeply analyze how to construct this precise mechanism through a highly specific, real-world application. Imagine if you are a founder named Olivia, launching a specialized cybersecurity compliance consultancy based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Olivia's primary target demographic consists of chief technology officers operating at mid-sized financial institutions who are absolutely terrified of the rapidly evolving, highly punitive state data privacy regulations rolling out across the United States. If Olivia relies on a standard contact form offering generic cybersecurity tips, she will fail to capture a single qualified lead. High-level financial executives do not want generic tips. They require immediate, actionable risk mitigation. To capture this hyper-specific audience, Olivia must isolate the single most urgent, paralyzing pain point her prospect is currently experiencing. In this specific scenario, that pain point is the profound, existential dread of facing crippling financial penalties and severe reputational damage resulting from a failed corporate compliance audit. Once the bleeding neck problem is identified, Olivia must architect the solution. However, she absolutely must avoid the catastrophic trap of creating a massive 50-page theoretical white paper or a dense digital textbook. Historical trends in digital marketing consistently prove that massive, text-heavy lead generation assets cause extreme cognitive overload. The busy executive downloads the massive file, saves it to a designated desktop folder intended for later reading, and completely forgets about its existence within 24 hours. This utterly destroys any potential for building long-term brand affinity or establishing immediate authority. Instead of a theoretical textbook, Olivia engineers a highly tactical, instantly consumable asset. She utilizes her deep industry expertise to create a proprietary, strictly formatted one-page digital spreadsheet titled the 2026 Financial Sector Data Privacy Audit Matrix. It is a highly engineered fill-in-the-blank operational template that allows a chief technology officer to systematically self-diagnose their critical compliance vulnerabilities in under 10 minutes. The perceived value is massive because it offers an immediate, tangible result, saving the executive hours of stressful research. But possessing a flawless digital asset is completely useless if the psychological packaging surrounding it fails to convert the visitor. Olivia must construct a dedicated, entirely friction-free landing page designed for one singular, uncompromising operational purpose, which is capturing the contact information. We must meticulously dissect the psychological architecture of this specific web page. The primary headline cannot rely on clever wordplay or vague industry jargon. It must be ruthlessly clear and outcome-driven. It should display a powerful statement such as instantly identify your critical data privacy vulnerabilities before your next state audit. Directly below this commanding headline, Olivia deploys exactly 3 highly targeted bullet points. These bullet points deliberately do not describe what the physical template actually is. Instead, they explicitly describe the exact negative business outcomes the template actively helps the user avoid. She carefully utilizes documented case studies of similar financial firms facing severe regulatory fines to validate the massive stakes involved, maintaining a strictly educational tone while highlighting the severe consequences of inaction. Furthermore, we must critically examine the linguistic structure of the final call to action. The primary button required to download the digital asset must never use passive, chore-inducing words like submit or subscribe. Those specific terms subconsciously imply a long-term obligation or a tedious administrative task. Instead, the button must utilize high-agency, fiercely action-oriented language, such as "Secure my free audit matrix now." This subtle but profound linguistic shift fundamentally alters the entire psychological dynamic of the digital transaction. The prospect no longer feels as though they are passively joining another corporate mailing list. They feel as though they are actively claiming a highly valuable, risk-reducing operational tool. By completely replacing a generic newsletter ask with this highly engineered, asymmetrical value exchange, historical trends dictate that early-stage founders can experience potential outcomes of increasing their daily lead capture volume by upwards of 400%, completely transforming the fundamental unit economics of their entire business model. Let us briefly pivot and apply this exact same psychological framework to a completely different economic sector to definitively prove its universal application. Imagine a founder named Marcus operating out of Miami, Florida. Marcus runs a rapidly scaling direct-to-consumer health and wellness brand that specializes in high-performance, scientifically formulated sleep optimization supplements. In the highly saturated electronic commerce market of 2026, offering a generic 10% discount code on a delayed pop-up window is no longer a viable acquisition strategy. Consumers have developed total psychological blindness to these basic transactional offers. Instead of a discount, Marcus deploys an interactive, diagnostic digital sleep architecture quiz. When a prospective customer lands on his storefront, they are invited to answer 5 highly specific, scientifically grounded questions regarding their current sleep hygiene, their daily caffeine intake protocols, and their ambient bedroom temperature. In direct exchange for their email address, the automated system instantaneously generates a highly personalized, data-backed sleep optimization protocol. This protocol naturally and seamlessly integrates Marcus's specific physical supplements as one component of a much broader, highly educational solution. The value provided to the consumer is immense, entirely personalized, and delivered immediately. When the prospect finally inputs their email address into either Olivia's or Marcus's system, the immediate post-opt-in fulfillment mechanics must be flawlessly executed. You must never simply redirect your newly acquired prospect to a generic thank you page that passively instructs them to check their inbox. That is a massive waste of peak human attention. Instead, you immediately redirect them to a high-retention video sales letter or a secondary piece of highly authoritative written content that instantly begins building deep institutional trust while they wait for the digital asset to arrive. And when that initial fulfillment email finally does arrive in their primary inbox, it must be meticulously stripped of all heavy corporate branding, massive header images, and complex hypertext markup language layouts. It must look exactly like a plain text, highly personal message sent directly from the founder's private outbox. This specific aesthetic strategy drastically increases the initial open rate and immediately establishes a human-to-human connection, fundamentally differentiating your startup from a faceless corporate broadcasting entity. You have successfully selected the ultimate software platform, heavily fortified your server architecture against aggressive spam filters, and engineered a mathematically proven, highly irresistible lead generation asset. The digital floodgates are officially open. Highly qualified, high-intent prospects are eagerly handing over their guarded contact information, and your completely free database is rapidly expanding by the hour. But this exact moment of triumph is precisely where 95% of newly minted United States founders make a catastrophic, revenue-destroying operational error. They successfully capture the lead, they deliver the promised digital asset, and then they plunge the prospect into absolute, terrifying silence for weeks on end, until they randomly decide to broadcast a generic promotional message. By the time that delayed communication finally arrives, the prospect has completely forgotten who you are, what your startup does, and why they ever engaged with your brand in the first place. You must ruthlessly capture and monetize their attention in the exact millisecond they are most highly motivated to interact with you. You require a flawless, highly calibrated, multi-day automated psychological sequence that systematically transitions a complete stranger into a hyper-responsive, fully educated lifetime buyer, while you are quite literally sleeping. And the exact anatomical breakdown of that automated welcome sequence architecture is what we are going to build from scratch next. The absolute most destructive mistake you can make in the digital economy of 2026 is successfully acquiring a highly qualified lead, and then immediately subjecting them to complete, terrifying silence. When a prospect hands over their contact information in exchange for your introductory digital asset, they are experiencing a momentary peak of extremely high psychological intent. Their problem is bleeding, they are actively seeking a solution, and they have just trusted you enough to let you inside their primary digital vault. If you wait even 48 hours to follow up with a manual newsletter, that peak intent completely evaporates. They will forget your name, they will forget your brand, and when your delayed broadcast finally arrives, they will ruthlessly hit the spam button. To permanently capture and monetize this fleeting window of attention, you must construct a highly sophisticated, 5-part automated welcome sequence. This is not a generic string of corporate updates. It is a meticulously calibrated psychological journey designed to transition a complete stranger into a fully educated, high-trust buyer without requiring a single minute of your daily active time. Historical trends aggregated across major marketing automation platforms in 2026 reveal a staggering reality. A properly engineered initial welcome communication achieves an average open rate of over 83%, compared to a dismal 21% for standard promotional broadcasts. Furthermore, these early automated sequences have demonstrated potential outcomes of generating over 300% more revenue per recipient than any other form of email communication. To extract this exact level of performance for your startup, we must forensically break down the precise architecture of the 5-day indoctrination protocol. Imagine if you are a founder named Thomas, operating a highly specialized financial consulting firm for independent medical practices in Boston, Massachusetts. Thomas has successfully deployed his free diagnostic spreadsheet, and doctors are actively opting into his database. The very millisecond a new doctor hits submit on his landing page, the first communication of his sequence must trigger instantaneously. This is the day one immediate fulfillment email. The singular objective of this message is to aggressively validate the user's decision to subscribe. Thomas does not attempt to pitch a $10,000 consulting retainer in this email. He delivers the promised spreadsheet via a highly visible, frictionless hyperlink located in the very first sentence. But he does not stop there. He immediately sets the operational cadence for the relationship. He explicitly informs the doctor exactly what to expect over the next 4 days, creating a psychological phenomenon known as an open loop. He writes a sentence such as, "Tomorrow, I am going to send you a complete breakdown of the single most expensive tax mistake that costs independent clinics an average of $40,000 a year." By actively telegraphing the future value, Thomas is structurally training his new prospect to actively look for his name in their inbox the following morning. Precisely 24 hours later, the system automatically deploys the Day 2 communication, internally known as the empathetic bridge. The core objective here is to completely destroy the perception that Thomas is a faceless corporate entity. People do not buy high-ticket services from logos. They buy from human beings who fundamentally understand their specific pain points. In this email, Thomas shares the authentic origin story of his consultancy. He details exactly why he chose to focus exclusively on medical practices, perhaps highlighting a specific, deeply frustrating administrative failure he witnessed while managing a clinic early in his career. By articulating the prospect's exact daily frustrations better than they can articulate it themselves, Thomas achieves an instant, massive transfer of authority. The doctor reading the email subconsciously concludes that if Thomas understands the problem this intimately, he must absolutely possess the correct solution. After another strict 24-hour delay, the Day 3 email arrives. This is the authority and paradigm shift communication. Up until this point, the prospect has received theoretical value. Now, you must provide undeniable mathematical proof. Thomas utilizes this third touchpoint to deploy a highly detailed, anonymized case study. He systematically breaks down how his consulting framework helped a similarly struggling pediatric clinic in a neighboring state streamline their billing operations and recover 6 figures in lost revenue. We heavily rely on these documented case studies to build an impenetrable wall of credibility, strictly avoiding any risky financial guarantees or non-compliant promises of future wealth. The email focuses entirely on the strategic process and the historical trends of his implemented systems, allowing the prospect to naturally envision those exact same positive outcomes applied to their own struggling practice. On Day 4, we initiate a highly strategic technical maneuver known as the engagement trigger. In the modern era of aggressive spam filters, simply getting your emails opened is no longer sufficient. Major inbox providers actively monitor how often users directly reply to your communications. If your replies are non-existent, your sender reputation slowly degrades. Thomas engineers his fourth email specifically to force a micro-commitment. Instead of delivering a long narrative, he asks a single, highly targeted question relevant to his industry. He might ask, "What is the single biggest operational bottleneck preventing your clinic from scaling this quarter?" Hit reply and let me know. I personally read every single response. When a percentage of his new subscribers actually hit reply and send a text response, it sends a massive, undeniable cryptographic signal to the receiving corporate firewalls that Thomas is a highly trusted, safe sender, practically guaranteeing that all of his future marketing broadcasts will bypass the promotional tab and land directly in the primary inbox. Finally, we arrive at day 5, the strategic conversion event. Over the past 96 hours, you have delivered massive upfront value, established deep empathetic trust, proved your competence through documented case studies, and forced a technical engagement. The prospect is now fully educated and optimally primed. This is the exact moment you present your core offer. However, Thomas does not use aggressive, high-pressure sales tactics. He frames his call to action as the completely logical, friction-free next step. He invites the doctor to schedule a complimentary, 30-minute operational audit, clearly explaining exactly what will be discussed, and explicitly stating that there is no obligation to purchase a long-term retainer, because the psychological groundwork has been flawlessly laid out over the previous 4 days. The conversion rate on this specific day 5 email will drastically outperform any cold outbound marketing effort you could possibly deploy. You have successfully constructed an automated, psychological conversion engine that operates flawlessly 24 hours a day, seamlessly transitioning anonymous website traffic into highly qualified sales conversations entirely on autopilot. You have leveraged the absolute best free software available, secured your server architecture, and mastered the asymmetrical value exchange. Your foundational marketing infrastructure is now technically complete, but as your database scales from 500 to 5,000 subscribers, relying entirely on intuition and automated sequences will eventually lead to catastrophic stagnation. You will begin to notice your open rate slowly decaying, your click velocity dropping, and your unengaged contacts dragging down your overall deliverability. To survive the long-term reality of digital marketing, you must transition from an architect to a forensic data scientist. You must learn how to rigorously audit your ongoing performance, systematically purge your database of algorithmic dead weight, and completely master the specific engagement metrics that dictate whether your startup continues to scale or slowly fades into absolute obscurity. And exactly how to read, interpret, and weaponize that critical back-end data is what we are going to expose in our final analysis. In the current digital landscape of 2026, relying on traditional open rates to measure the health of your startup is an absolute mathematical delusion. For decades, founders were taught to celebrate when their email marketing dashboard displayed a 40 or 50% open rate. But you must understand that massive technology conglomerates and aggressively updated corporate firewalls have fundamentally altered the tracking ecosystem. When you transmit a broadcast today, particularly in the business-to-business sector, the receiving server does not simply deliver the message to the prospect. It intercepts the transmission, autonomously opens the email, and artificially clicks every single embedded hyperlink to aggressively scan for malicious phishing software before the human recipient ever sees the subject line. If you are exclusively monitoring raw open rates, you are essentially tracking the behavioral patterns of artificial intelligence security bots, not the actual purchasing intent of your target demographic. Imagine if you are a founder named Emily, operating a highly specialized human resources compliance software platform based in Chicago, Illinois. Emily has rigorously implemented every single strategy we have discussed. She selected the perfect zero-cost infrastructure, fortified her domain authentication, and successfully scaled her database to 4,500 active subscribers using a flawless digital value exchange. Emily transmits her weekly educational compliance briefing and immediately sees a reported 65% open rate. She assumes her marketing operation is a massive success. However, her calendar remains completely empty, and her top-line revenue is entirely stagnant. Emily is experiencing the catastrophic disconnect between superficial vanity metrics and hard operational reality. Because she is targeting mid-level corporate executives, over 70% of her recorded opens are entirely artificial, generated instantaneously by enterprise-grade security software. She is trapped in a false positive feedback loop, believing her messaging is resonating when in reality, it is being silently archived. To fundamentally correct this operational blindness, You must completely abandon the open rate and transition your entire analytical focus to the only two metrics that currently represent an undeniable, cryptographically secure signal of actual human attention: click velocity and organic reply volume. Click velocity measures the precise speed and frequency at which your subscribers interact with specific, heavily contextualized hyperlinks buried deep within the body of your text. A security bot will instantaneously click every link simultaneously the millisecond the email hits the server. A human being will read the narrative, pause, and click a highly specific call to action 3 or 4 minutes after the initial delivery sequence. By utilizing the advanced segmentation tools hidden within your free marketing platform, you can apply strict conditional logic filters that entirely ignore instantaneous bot clicks and isolate only the delayed, deliberate human interactions. This mathematical isolation allows you to build a hyper-accurate, pristine subsegment of your audience, consisting entirely of verified human prospects who are actively consuming your intellectual property. Furthermore, we must weaponize the organic reply volume. As we previously established during the automated welcome sequence architecture, forcing a direct text reply is the ultimate method for bypassing aggressive spam algorithms. But it is also the ultimate diagnostic tool for measuring list vitality. If Emily transmits a highly controversial, industry-specific opinion regarding upcoming human resources legislation, and she receives exactly 0 direct replies from her 4,500 subscribers, she possesses empirical, undeniable proof that her audience is fundamentally disengaged, regardless of what the inflated open rate metric claims. Historical trends aggressively indicate that a healthy, highly cultivated email list should consistently generate a baseline reply rate of 1 to 3% on any broadcast that explicitly asks a direct, operational question. If your startup is falling below this threshold, your messaging is failing to resonate with the core pain points of your demographic. This hard analytical reality brings us to the most psychologically difficult, yet absolutely mandatory, operational procedure in modern email marketing: the ruthless execution of the automated sunset sequence. As a newly minted founder, you have fought incredibly hard for every single email address in your database. The psychological desire to hoard those contacts indefinitely is overwhelming, but you must understand the mathematical reality of sender reputation in 2026. Major inbox providers like Google and Microsoft do not evaluate your emails in a vacuum. They evaluate your domain based on the aggregate behavioral score of your entire list. If you are continuously sending broadcasts to 2,000 subscribers who have not clicked a valid link or replied to a message in over 90 days, those inbox providers classify your domain as a low-quality, nuisance sender. Consequently, they will begin silently routing your critical communications directly to the spam folder, not just for the unengaged users, but for the highly engaged, high-intent buyers who desperately want to read your content. By hoarding dead weight, you are actively destroying your ability to communicate with your actual paying customers. To protect your enterprise revenue, you must configure a permanent, background automation that systematically purges unengaged contacts. When a subscriber reaches 90 days without a verified human click or reply, they must be automatically removed from your primary broadcasting list and dropped into a highly specialized, 3-day re-engagement protocol. This protocol is entirely stripped of heavy branding and utilizes extreme conversational brevity. The first communication should be a simple, one-sentence plain text email asking a highly direct question, such as, "Are you still looking for strategies to streamline your corporate compliance audits this quarter?" This is specifically engineered to force a definitive yes or no response. If they do not respond to this initial prompt, you wait 48 hours and deploy the final severance communication. You politely explicitly state that because they have not been actively reading the material, you are officially removing them from the database to respect their digital inbox space, providing one final, highly visible hyperlink to remain subscribed if they wish to stay. If they completely ignore that final warning, you must execute the permanent deletion without a single ounce of hesitation. While watching your total subscriber count drop by 20 or 30% might initially feel like a massive operational failure, it is actually the ultimate strategic victory. By systematically amputating the algorithmic dead weight, the engagement percentages of your remaining database will artificially skyrocket. Your click-through rates will double overnight. The receiving corporate firewalls will immediately recognize this massive spike in positive user behavior and drastically elevate your overall domain sender score. You will have successfully transformed a bloated, declining database into a highly concentrated, mathematically pristine asset that consistently generates predictable, high-margin revenue. You now possess the complete, end-to-end architectural blueprint required to dominate the digital inbox. You have mastered the software infrastructure, the server-level cryptographic authentication, the psychological value exchange, the automated indoctrination sequences, and the forensic data analysis required to maintain peak deliverability. Your startup is fully equipped to deploy a zero-cost marketing engine that rivals the operational capacity of a massive corporate agency. But having a hyper-optimized, mathematically flawless email conversion engine waiting perfectly on your digital storefront is entirely useless if your daily website traffic is absolute zero. You have built the ultimate conversion trap, but you currently possess absolutely no scalable mechanism to drive high-intent human attention into that specific funnel without burning tens of thousands of dollars on highly volatile social media advertising campaigns. The precise, entirely organic traffic architecture required to systematically hijack massive search engines, intercept your competitors' existing audience, and flood your newly constructed email landing pages with thousands of highly qualified daily visitors for exactly $0 is the absolute missing link to your foundational startup survival. And exactly how to engineer that relentless organic traffic machine from the ground up is what we are going to meticulously dismantle in our next masterclass.